I am so excited to share the conversation that I'm having with Sahil Mansouri, who has recently joined Wander as president and COO. Prior to joining Wander, Sahil ran, founded, scaled Bravado, the world's largest sales community, and had scaled companies like Glassdoor and Meltwater. He's an investor in some incredible companies like Anthropic and more. Candidly, one of the best operators and go-to-market leaders I have ever worked with. And so I'm so excited to jump into this conversation. Sahil, I am so excited that you have officially joined Wander.
Let's go, dude.
Amazing. I'm so stoked to be building with you. And I think one of the coolest things for me is that you can tell the impact of someone when they join in the first few days. And since you have joined, we are now by an order of magnitude, basically 5x plus trending in terms of growth, in terms of new units added and everything else. And so it was very obvious to me as a founder, even though I tried to do a great job, that there was so much potential energy in this company. And so I'd love to just hear from you when you came into Wander, what you saw, what was broken, what you thought you could accelerate, and then how you went about making the decisions that are ultimately going to lead to the platform literally being twice as large at the end of the first month that you've joined.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think I deserve all that credit because the energy built within the company was there all along. It just took, I think, an outside perspective to figure out where the bottlenecks were. You built that energy because, again, I can't stress this enough. Like, my journey with Wander didn't begin as an investor in the company, and it didn't begin as an employee of the company. It began as a guest.
Yeah.
It began as a guest, right? I stayed in a Wander, and I was like, holy shit, this is the future of travel. Like, after you stay in a Wander, it is impossible to ever want to not stay in a Wander again. I remember texting you because we were, I think 4 years ago, maybe three or 4 years ago, we were doing a bachelor party in Cape Cod, and you had no inventory in Cape Cod. And I was really frustrated about that because my friends were suggesting Airbnbs to stay at. And I was texting you on a regular basis to be like, add homes in Cape Cod because I don't want to book an Airbnb. It's addictive. It's a NPS score, CSAT. These are measurements of something that's really simple, which is at the end of the day, have you built something that people can't live without once they try it? And I think you've built something that nobody who's ever stayed in a Wander has ever said, oh, wow, that was much worse than staying in an Airbnb. And I think that is an incredible accomplishment. And now my job is to take that momentum and spread it across billions of people across the planet.
Totally.
And that's it. So I think my job is much easier because you took us from 0 to 1, and my job is just to figure out how to get us from 1 to a billion. But 0 to 1 is the hardest part of it. And I, again, my journey with Wander began as a guest, and I got the Wander experience. And it was the first time I ever realized that staying in a short-term rental could be as delightful as staying at a Four Seasons or staying at another luxury hotel. And I think that's absolutely incredible.
And you just finished an amazing trip with your daughter and with your family, and you've been racking up these moments and these experiences. How do you sort of balance that and exploring the world and creating those memories with also being such like a radically efficient and epic operator? And then how do you sort of bring those personal elements into Wander?
So I don't work on anything that I don't personally love, right? My previous startup at Bravado was about sales. I'm deeply passionate about sales, maybe too passionate about sales. I love sales. I love everything about it. And so it was easy for me to work on Bravado because it was something I cared about. I love travel. And when I travel, my wife and I are polar opposites. My wife is a extremely frugal traveler. She wants to minimize the bill at the end of the day. I am the exact opposite. I want to maximize the experience. All I want is to make sure that wherever we stay is absolutely incredible. And so whether it's staying at Rosewood Cape Kidnappers and Cowrie Cliff in New Zealand, the Four Seasons Bora Bora. Yeah, my daughter and I took an 8-week trip together. Daddy-daughter, I've got a 5-year-old, which I'm very happy that you got to meet. And she's very happy with Uncle John, Andrew, and Auntie Morgan. when you stay at a great hotel with great hospitality and a great guest experience, that has a indelible impact in your life. That staying at a 3-star, 4-star, really, like staying in a luxury hotel, but without that service element and without that curation and the compassion and whatever, just doesn't. And so for me, it's like working at Wander doesn't feel like work. Like in no way does this feel like a job. This only feels like one thing to me. And it feels like a passion that I have for incredible travel experiences met with the fact that I cannot believe we don't have 100 Wanders in every city, in every country in the world, such so that even if you're staying at a hotel or you're staying at a 2-bedroom apartment or you're staying in a 6-bedroom mansion, that there's a Wander that's just right for you.
Yeah, I think it's, candidly speaking, especially sitting out here experiencing this home, it's like a total disservice. The fact that like there aren't Wanders in Europe, there's not Wanders in Australia or New Zealand. Like we haven't unlocked that experience for our customers and fixing that is certainly important.
But like think about this home, right? So this home is virtually indistinguishable from hundreds of others on Airbnb and VRBO and Booking and other sites because they all get jumbled together, right? And then it becomes about take rate and like reviews and shadow bans and stuff. And I think the philosophy that you've taken, which is I want to curate the absolute best short-term vacation rentals, hotels, and experiences and stays in the travel industry, and I would build the AI infrastructure in order to support that. Like it's a noble mission because the number of people like myself who saw the great pictures in an Airbnb. I'll tell you something funny.
Please.
So we did an offsite at Bravado in March of 2023. And in this offsite, we booked an offsite in Miami. And if you remember, March 2023 was not the year where venture funding was easy to be found. And so like every dollar had to be conserved. And yet we did an offsite because we wanted to bring the team together, et cetera. And we booked this house in Miami, Airbnb. And it looked so nice in the photos. Like it looked like it was going to be super baller. And we got together and this thing was like a rundown. It looked like it had been shot up by the bullets in like Casino or something like that. You know, like it was antiquated. It had clearly been retouched in a bunch of ways that made it seem much better than what it was. There was the basement, which was built as a party room, had 6-foot high ceilings. So you were in the basement, and it was, but it was
party room with a neck to the side.
Like it was and we had I don't even understand how you could build a basement that was 6 feet tall, but like my head was hitting against it, and there were a bunch of employees that couldn't even they had to like squat to walk around. It was one of the most frustrating experiences because we spent $25,000 for that experience, and like everyone's got a story like that. Everyone has been duped by the reviews, has been duped by the photos, has been duped by the whatever. And when you create a trust layer that inspires people, money's hard to come by these days. People are struggling. Like it's not easy to make ends meet. You put your hard-earned money together in order to plan a vacation for your family, your company, or whatever, and then you have a really poor experience. Like that's an incredible tax for the individual to bear. And I feel like you are uplifting that tax. And I think it's just a beautiful thing. And we're going to build something together where you have a 100% guarantee peace of mind that if you book a Wander, you will leave your stay happy. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah, no, I think that's certainly the mission statement, right? Find your happy place. And so you're not just super passionate about the experiences, but you're also very passionate about technology. And I know you were running into all different types of issues during your trip, trying to find homes, trying to book homes. I'd love to just hear your point of view on what that booking experience is like and how you look forward to solving it at Wander.
Okay, so it's such a good question because, again, I had just sold my previous company. I was lucky to be able to do that. And so I had no budget for this trip because my wife was at home. So the CFO was at home and I had an uncapped budget. Sorry, Jordan. And so I was basically like, okay, what are the 5 nicest hotels in New Zealand? And it was like Rosewood this, Rosewood that, like whatever. So we booked all those. And then there's a bunch of small villages and small like towns along the way, of which there is no Rosewood, there's no Four Seasons,
Yeah.
etc. And I was trying to figure out what was the best place to stay. And so, like millions of consumers, I trusted ChatGPT. And I just asked ChatGPT, hey, what's the best place to stay in Christchurch? What's the best place to stay in Kaikoura? What's the best place, to stay in Rotorua? And the suggestions it would give would be markedly worse than the local intel and knowledge I got by talking to people in New Zealand. So there's this incredible delta between asking the staff at Rosewood, hey, I'm going to Rotorua, where should I stay? And then they would suggest a place, versus asking ChatGPT, which was surfacing answers that were incongruous with the lifestyle and no budget, that I had set out for myself. And I feel like Wander has an incredible opportunity to help property managers that have exceptional properties, exceptional stays, exceptional homes be discovered through these platforms. Look, for the last 20 years, there's been no way for you to drive traffic to your direct bookings website. It was impossible, right? Because Airbnb and Booking and VRBO had billions of dollars of budget, and they were like dominating PPC and SEO. Meanwhile, hundreds of millions of consumers have been trained to go directly to Airbnb and these OTAs. And so if you were a property manager that had curated a supply of exceptional stays, you were just fighting in the same trough, in the same mudslinging fight as everybody that was running these super commercialized Airbnbs that nobody wanted to stay at. And there was no way for you to distinguish, because the reviews were being gamed and because the photos were being gamed, and the whole game was rigged against operators who were small, boutique, curated, and had soul. And I think that what Wander's doing is it's giving power to those people. It's giving power to the person who actually has done the work of making this place and making those exceptional stays. And so what I feel like is really important to discuss with Wander is that we are on the side of the property manager who is deeply passionate about the guest experience. And for those people, they haven't had a fighting chance against the OTAs, but Wander OS and the technology that we're building is giving them that first chance to say, you know what, I can rise above the fray and let the quality of the experience and the stays speak for themselves. Where previously it's just been a giant review, TripAdvisor, this, that, whatever sort of slop. And I feel like the person who has borne the cost of that is the guest, who has spent their hard-earned money in a tough economy on a stay that was dissatisfactory.
And not even just that, it's the friction of, even when you discover one of these like really incredible places to stay, like actually selecting the dates, navigating to checkout on this website that was built in the early 2000s. And so that's something I'm also very excited about with Wander OS, is not just having wander.com curate all of that inventory, but then to provide an Apple Pay level frictionless when you do want to go and book directly on one of their websites or whatever else, to be able to do that through Wander OS.
Well, let's just talk about how ChatGPT and how LLMs have changed the game, because for the first time, the consumer has somebody on their side, right? Google just cared about who was spending the most on PPC. Airbnb, of course, just, dominated their own search rankings. You're one random bad review away from being shadow banned. But instead, you now have, for the first time, an AI travel agent in your pocket who knows how many kids you have, who knows what your budget is, who knows what you liked about previous days. And then you ask that person, hey, I'm going to Miami next week. Where should I stay? And that agent has one mission, which is to find you the best possible stay at the lowest price. And where OTAs are extremely vulnerable for the first time to direct booking websites is the fact that for the first time, that 15.5% fee that they're charging on every booking is too expensive. Because you can get the same property on the direct bookings website, but no one can find it. And I think that now you can actually get direct traffic to that site, but that's not enough. Once you get to the website, you have to earn the trust of the consumer, because you're asking that person to put their credit card details and trust a cancellation policy. You have no middleman in order to file a ticket if the house doesn't turn out to be as good. And so have to, in some ways, have some transference of trust, where previously you would offload that trust to Airbnb. Today you have to actually apply directly to the property manager. And I think that's a really tough ask when you're dealing with antiquated websites that are built by your property management service, for whom building websites is a throwaway, right? They're not modern tech companies. These companies do not understand the infrastructure of e-commerce and what it takes in order to compete in an AI SEO, like modern Apple Pay payments infrastructure, right? These are technology companies that are effectively building the Siebel and Oracle CRM level systems of property management services. And what we are building is the modern infrastructure, the Shopify level experience that allows a property manager to have a direct bookings website that is on par with the Airbnb experience. And because you're applying that same level of trust to the website, you now have, again, for the first time, you get traffic to the website through the LLMs. You have a checkout experience that mirrors the checkout experience of Airbnb. And now you're actually willing to complete that transaction. And once you do, that's where the entire game changes. Because as soon as you book directly with a property manager, the race begins to have such a great guest experience that they come back every year. Guest loyalty, retention, right? You know, all of a sudden you have a fighting chance. Airbnb obfuscates the email address of the user. It doesn't share any data about the user with you. And so what they're doing is, of course, they're doing vendor platform lock-in, but at the expense of the guest experience that you can deliver to the people who are staying at your properties. And so I think like we have this incredible opportunity today to not just get traffic to these websites, not just drive payments, because I think those things are great. But I think the thing that matters the most is how do you increase guest loyalty, retention, and reward property managers who go above and beyond with an infrastructure that allows them to have compounding advantage to their business.
So as an operator, you love and talk about focus quite a bit. And so you came into Wander and you saw me sitting there with the Wander.com marketplace, which was curated, really built around the best of the best experiences. And then me with also my Mad Hatter hat on saying, we really need to build Wander OS. It's the other side of the coin, this idea that we need to power the direct booking websites and these micro brands for all these different property managers. So we had the inventory on Wander.com, and then we had this distributed OTA for the rest of their inventory. And obviously for someone like you walking in, you're like, hey, John Andrew, that's like, we're a little bit split here. Now that you've sort of entered into the organization, tell me about how you think about the strategy between having the Wander.com marketplace, but then also the Wander OS side, the inventory, and those direct booking websites.
Let's talk in terms of 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, because I think that's a easy way to think about short term, midterm, long term. 5 years from today, I believe very deeply that people will discover and book vacation rentals along with everything else through AI platforms. I don't even think you're going to visit Wander.com or Airbnb or any other platform. I think what's going to happen is you're going to send your agent's going to find it. You're going to do all the searching through whatever interface that looks like. Maybe it's your like Neuralink in your head, who knows, but like you're going to do all your research there. And ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to complete that transaction end to end in the LLM.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near that. If I go to the Four Seasons website, which is a website that I trust above any other hotelier website, because I think the Four Seasons is by and large the best hotel kind of experience in the world, I still look at every single room category. I still look at every single photo. I still try to play with the dates in order to see if I can get a cheaper rate. Like it's innate consumer behavior that you want to interact with the property on a listings page.
Well, it's also fun, right?
Yeah, I
like,
guess so, yeah.
It's not like you're sending, codecs to go and complete some like very monotonous like API integration. It's like you're looking at travel for your trip, like looking at the images and everything else is obviously like still a fun dynamic.
AI is something that you use to do stuff you don't want to do. Travel is something everyone wants to do, right? Everybody loves to travel, and people love to curate a great travel experience. And you're right, it is joyous to play around and find the perfect trip and the perfect room.
Well, it's not joyous to to be looking at a web page and trying to figure out if you're going to get scammed or not.
Sure.
And so I think that using AI for the curation, for the discovery is super exciting. But then the question is like, what happens next, right? How do they fall in love? What's the brand behind it, to your point about Four Seasons? And I agree that in 5 years, things are going to look very different. You could be looking at dynamically generated websites. You could be looking at, like your Optimus robot in your living room, like, creating a PowerPoint presentation about your trip.
Sure.
Like things are going to look obviously very, very different. But yeah, I think that.
But let's come back to your question.
Yeah.
Your question was, Wander.com and Wander OS and how do they play together? So I think in 5 years, the most important asset of Wander will be Wander OS, because it will be the direct AI infrastructure that is used for travel across hotels, across short-term vacation rentals, across anyone who desires a premium stay and is a discerning traveler who's willing to pay a little bit more to have a little bit great of an experience. So I think that's the long-term play. In the next year, we're not going to get there. People still need a trusted middle OTA marketplace where someone has done the curation work for them. And I think that's where Wander.com is so critical, because now you have 600,000 plus travelers who have understood that when Wander puts its name next to something, they can have peace of mind. They can have trust that their trip is taken care of. And so in the next year, I think Wander.com is the most important property and surface of Wander. In 5 years, it's Wander OS. The question really you're asking me is what happens in 3 years? Because I don't know if that shift to Wander OS happens rapidly or if it takes longer. Candidly, I think the whole ChatGPT Shopify experience has been interesting. Yeah. Obviously, ChatGPT tried a bunch of stuff with Walmart to do direct shopping. It went terribly. They tried it with Shopify. They then scuttled it. So I'm not entirely sure. I think no one is sure. But I think that we can rest assured that in the short term, having a curated marketplace, a curated supply of hotels, short-term rentals that people can reliably book and know, not hope, not maybe, but know definitively that this is a great place to stay is invaluable. And in 5 years, being the distributed marketplace, the thing that agents can drive consumers to in order to find the cheapest way to book the best stays is valuable. And then the messy middle is stuff that we're going to figure out together.
Totally. Yeah. When starting the company, I'd split it between the mission statement and the vision statement. The mission statement was to help people find their happy place, but the vision statement was the infrastructure to experience the world. And I think that idea, now that Wander OS is starting to be productized and obviously will continue that expansion, my goal is that the rails on which people travel just starts to become more and more frictionless, even if they have no idea that they're enjoying the Wander digital experience as part of that travel. As an operator, what would you say are your sort of core tenets? You are incredibly quick to make decisions. You're very sharp and on your feet. The way that you have taught me to manage people over the last even few weeks has had incredible effects. So tell me sort of what have been the greatest lessons that you've had building your company over the last decade, and obviously, scaling to tens of millions, hundreds of millions of revenue at your previous roles. So I'd just love to know what you've learned and how you're applying that at Wander.
Yeah, I mean, I've just fucked a lot of shit up, like that's just the reality. Like I almost ran Bravado into the ground every single year for 6 years in a row. And every year I had a new excuse to blame, right? It was like, oh, COVID, or like, oh, sales hiring slowed down, or like, oh, whatever. And actually it was none of those things. It was because I was a bad CEO, right? I was insufficiently equipped with the right tool set, mentality, mindset in order to build a generational company. And in the last 2 years of Bravado, that changed, in much. I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to Alex Bard, who obviously is a board member here at Wander, was also a board member at Bravado, who coached me a lot on this kind of stuff and spent more time than I deserved on my mentorship. I would say my core tenets are fivefold, which I sent to the entire Wander company on the first day that I started. But it starts with finite calories, which is to say that startups are by its very nature, 1 calorie you spend in one direction is definitively going to cost you in terms of where you could have spent that same calorie. Said differently, an organization, the more split the focus is, the less you get done in each space. The more restricted and the more focused an org is, the more progress you make. And ultimately, I think that doing fewer things better is probably the number one tenet that I've learned. Now, of course, that's also paired with doing the right things.
Exactly.
And so I also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater to say, let's just relentlessly focus on the wrong thing.
Totally. Like making like our customer support emails like totally perfect. Like,
right. When we could just, right. And so you have to have the judgment to know what to focus on and the discipline to keep focusing on it when it gets hard, frustrating, annoying, and then there's something shiny over here that's distracting you.
But actually, I'd add to that, scary. So we've recently made a decision, right, internally that we're saying, hey, we're going to be laser focused on fixing core issues and bugs and all these different things. And I said to you, hey, if we do this in April, we're going to experience lower growth, which ultimately has ended up not to be true on like the grand scheme of things in terms of unit growth and everything else. But that was me operating from a place of fear, saying, hey, this is scary that, you know, we're not going to grow in the same way, which again ended up not necessarily being true. But you came in with sort of courage. So I think that would be the one other thing that I'd add to your list of, you know, uncomfortable or whatever else, is that like even when it's scary, to stay focused.
Prioritization is painful. I mean, you've heard me say that many times. Like, if it's not painful, you're not prioritizing. If you're not feeling like you're leaving meat on the bone, then you're not focused. Like, as a business, you have to do so few things that the organization feels like you're letting a bunch of things rot on the vine that are really valuable. But that's the only way you can make progress on the few things that really matter. And then ultimately, it's a judgment call. You know, Keith Rabois talks about barrels and ammunition, which I think is a very similar concept to this, where it's like, you know, like the number of barrels any organization has are finite. You typically have unlimited ammo. And what you try to do is you try to conflate those two. And you're like, well, we have people, so let's work on it.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's like, no, you actually have very few people that know what to do. Let those people direct the maximum amount of resources at the company such so that they actually can get something done. Yeah. And so that's the first thing. I mean, the second thing is also like, don't bullshit, which is kind of in this vein, but it's like, I deluded myself many times. Everybody wants to be part of a winning team. Nobody wants to be part of a losing team. Nobody wants to stand up in front of the board or in front of the company and say, hey, we had a target of 1,000 and we got to 400 and we only hit 40%. What you want to say is, hey guys, we only hit 40%, but guess what? We're going to hit 250% next month. It's much easier to do that. It's the razzle dazzle. It's the PT Barnum, keep the lights on, keep the entertainment going, like whatever. And it's intellectually dishonest. It's not how you build a startup. You build a startup by setting hard goals. You then exceed, meet, or most likely miss those goals. When you miss those goals, you go through the intellectual exercise of saying, why did we miss? What could we have done differently that we did not do, such so that we could have actually hit this goal? Then you make those changes. Yep. And then you try again to hit the same goal. You don't set a different goal. You don't move the goalposts. You don't change quota at the 29th day of the month. Yep. You instead say, okay, when I joined as an advisor to Wander, you told me that the goal for January was 5,000 units a month. You said that to me. And I dug into why you had said that. And it turned out you had said that because somebody on the team had said to you that should be the goal, one person randomly. And that became the goal. And nobody had the courage to tell you that was the wrong goal. By the way, I knew it was the wrong goal a long time before that. And I should have done it. I didn't, because I was still waiting to see how the org went. And then again, on the 29th, 30th day of the month, we tried to change the goal to try to set it to be more realistic. And we played this weird game. And what nobody asked the question of at Wander, I feel like until I got here, was what would actually get us to 5,000 units? And I was like, well, here's the changes we need to make to get to 5,000 units. And today we're pacing to 7,700 units in a month. And I don't take pride in solving that problem because the answer was within the company before I got there. It's just nobody asked the right question, right? The question should have been on January 31st, the question should have been, what could we have done differently to actually hit this goal? But nobody asked that question. Instead, people asked the question of, was it the right goal or whatever? Like people want to play the game of assigning blame or whatnot. And I just think it's intellectually dishonest. I think we set a goal of 5,000 units a month. Great. We set that goal. Every goal is arbitrary. We all just set random fucking goals to build a startup. How can we hit it? And not only hit it, how can we get to 7,500 next month and 10,000 the month after that? And if we're not doing that, then like, what are we even doing with our lives? Like, Anthropic is going from 19 to $30 billion in a single month. Like we're playing in the same pond as they are. And if we're not showing those kinds of results, then we're never going to be one of the generational companies. And like you and I are not sitting here wasting our time building a shitty little startup. Like we're going to do this. We're going to build a really big company. And I think that like focus, don't bullshit. And then lastly, be in the weeds.
Totally.
Which is like the defining, I think, thing you have done incredibly well, which is like once upon a time, I think you trusted what people told you without questioning if you had the unreliable narrator syndrome.
Yeah.
And now you get into the weeds yourself. And what you have found is that when you pick the rock up, little creepy crawlies come out. And that those creepy crawlies are the last 15% between good and done.
Yeah.
And you're getting things done now at the org. And I just want to say I'm super proud of you. I think you're doing an incredible job. You are owning minute execution details that would have otherwise killed the company, but that you are solving, that will set up the foundation for us to scale.
Totally. No, and it's also a ton of fun. Like it's a ton of fun to operate that way and to get into the code base and the architecture and be on with the team and on with customers who are upset instead
locking
of
people in your apartment.
Yeah. I mean, there were some engineers who weren't allowed to leave for a bit. So
Right.
not
showers,
actually.
showers opposite. No,
it's
no,
a very nice apartment. It's a very nice space.
I don't want John Andrews' instinct to be positive, to sugarcoat you from the fact that he tied these people up using chains and threw small bits of saltine crackers at them for nurture until they fixed the code. No, but seriously, like the team wants to work hard, right? The reality is people don't mind working hard if they're seeing the fruits of their labor. So people don't mind working hard if they're seeing us hit all-time highs on growth.
Totally.
But people don't want to work hard for a startup that's missing its targets.
Yeah.
So we set ambitious targets, we unlock how to get there, and then we push everyone to work their ass off, including ourselves. And then we just keep fucking doing that over and over again for 24 to 36 months. And one day we'll be like, Airbnb who?
So I think that as we wrap this up, I'd love to just hear sort of your call on the future. So let's say we're 3 years in. What does Wander look like?
You're going to hate this answer because it's not the answer you want, but I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I care about how we're going to hit April's numbers. That's all I care about. And if we hit April's numbers, we will earn the right to work on May's numbers. And if we hit those, we'll earn the right to work on June. And then maybe I will afford myself the luxury to think about how to plan for Q3. But I will never look 3 years forward. I have points of view. I've thought about it a lot. It's not worth us talking about. All that's worth us talking about is how do we hit April? What is blocking us? What is the post-mortem we can write today that says it's April 30th, we missed our target. We didn't get enough live units. We didn't hit GMV. We didn't whatever. Everything that you think could happen, let's solve for today. And then I will allow us to think about May when we hit those targets. Let's not worry about 3 years from today. Let's not worry about it because we have to earn the right to be alive in 3 years. We have to earn the right to dominate market share in 3 years. And we will never do that if we don't satisfy the core requirements of what we want to achieve in April.
Well, I can say that the company will be twice the size at the end of April as it was at the start of April. So
Yeah,
you're already off to the races.
We're off to the start.
We're off to the races.
Let's fucking go, dude.
Amazing. So glad to be building together.
Let's do it.